Hello everybody, it's Delilah and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little bit of a more serious topic. It's a very sensitive topic, but it's something I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. It is so common and it doesn't get talked about enough. As you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about miscarriage. I have suffered a miscarriage myself. If you didn't know, I did film a video. I talked about our story, everything that happened. So if you want to know more detailed of what exactly went down, what happened, there's a very emotional video about me talking about that I will link right here for you to go and watch. It might be a good video to watch before you get into this, just so you have a better idea and understanding of my personal experience. Everything I'm going to be talking about is from my own experience. Every woman has very different experiences. Praise the Lord, have only suffered one miscarriage. It was an early miscarriage. It was considered a chemical miscarriage. I will talk about different types of miscarriages. I will talk about the different types of miscarriages later in this video, but it was an early miscarriage, and so everything that I'm talking about is from that experience. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. What I'm here for is to raise awareness of miscarriages and to help other women who are going through a similar situation, to help them feel not so alone. So if you're going through a miscarriage right now, or if you have in the past, I pray that this video will touch your heart and help you find healing and help you come to a better understanding and know that you are not alone. I don't know what it is about miscarriage, but it's something that is just, like I said, it's so common, and yet very few women actually speak up and talk about it. And it's something that I feel like just needs to be spoken about more. It's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's something that I really feel led to just shed some more light on. So in today's Girl Talk series, I'm going to be talking about miscarriage. I went over to Instagram. I got you guys to ask me questions. I told you not to hold back. It has been almost 2 years. In July, it will be 2 years since we had our miscarriage. I've come to a place of better understanding and healing. Of course, it still hurts. I might get emotional in this video. I don't normally get emotional about it anymore, but when I really think about it, it still hurts. Because this is a very sensitive topic, this might not be a video you'll want to watch with your little ones. I won't be holding back in details. I'll be talking about physical, emotional, spiritual, everything. So if you don't feel comfortable with your kids hearing this kind of stuff, I want to watch it later. Before we get into the questions, I want to talk about the different types of miscarriages. We suffered a chemical pregnancy, and what that means is it's a very, very early miscarriage. In the first 1 or 2 weeks is when it is considered a chemical pregnancy. There usually isn't any medical help involved in a chemical pregnancy. Everything should just pass naturally. There is a normal miscarriage. I don't know if there's a special term for it or word for it, but it's just when you start to bleed, you start to miscarry, and your body just lets everything go. This can happen anywhere in the first trimester, so sometimes you need to go to the hospital. If it doesn't pass naturally, you may have to go to the hospital to get a D&C. I, praise the Lord, have never had to experience that, so I did get a few questions about D&Cs. I don't know. I pray I'll never have to know. If you've gone through a D&C and if you feel comfortable at all, if you don't, please don't comment, but if you do feel comfortable telling your story, please do tell in the comments below. A big part of healing, I know at least for myself, was to just talk about things, to share my story, and to hear other women's stories as well. So by commenting your experience below, you might actually help somebody else out who's going through a similar situation. And also, that's a great way for me to pray for you, for others to pray for you. So if you feel like you just need some prayer right now, leave a comment. The last form of miscarriage that I know of is called a missed miscarriage, and this is when your body doesn't actually know that the baby has passed. So your body continues to have pregnancy symptoms, continues to grow, and you continue to feel pregnant, but the baby inside actually passed a while ago and your body just isn't getting the memo. I know people who have gone through these, and it just breaks my heart. And again, I pray that I'll never have to experience that. So that's just a background to give you a little idea of what exactly I'm talking about. I'm talking about a chemical pregnancy. That's been my personal experience. Every woman has a completely different experience, and every miscarriage, no matter how early, no matter how late, no matter how physically traumatic, it all counts. It counts. It is a baby who passed, and your feelings are valid. I want you to know that. That is so important to me, that you know that you know, especially for the people who have had a chemical pregnancy, people might want to tell you that it was nothing. It was something. It was a human. It was a person, and your feelings are completely valid. Sorry, that was a lot. let's just get into the questions. How far along were you when you lost the baby? I was not very far along at all. I don't remember details, but I think it was about 3-ish days after I found out I was pregnant. I think it was like 4-ish, 5-ish weeks. I actually tested early and it was a complete fluke. Everything was like a fluke, and I don't know why the Lord allowed it all to happen. We weren't trying, so I don't even know why I tested, but it was a complete and utter shock when I saw that second line. I took multiple pregnancy tests, so I know it wasn't just a false pregnancy test. I knew it was real, and then a few days later we miscarried. So if I hadn't actually tested, I would never have even known. How did you overcome the fear and try for another? Was there fear, or did you know it was God's plan? So when the miscarriage happened, it was only a few days after Eloise's first birthday, and we always knew once Eloise turned 1, we would want to think about trying again. So at this point, I already had crazy baby fever. I was so ready to be pregnant again. When we found out we were pregnant, we were ecstatic. This was perfect. This was perfect timing. And then the miscarriage happened. And after the miscarriage, I think literally a day or two after, I remember just looking at Zach and saying, we need to try for another right away. The miscarriage made me want to be pregnant that much more. It made me want to try that much more to have another baby. Everybody will react a different way. Some women don't want to try for a long time to let themselves heal. Some women want to try again like right away, and that's how I felt. So there really wasn't any fear in trying again, but there was fear, especially after I found out I was pregnant again. I did know it was all part of God's plan. I am a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, and God has a plan for us, and I don't know what that plan is for us, but God knows, and I'm riding that wave and I'm learning as I go. How did the miscarriage affect your relationship with the Lord? It definitely drew me closer to the Lord, and it really made me realize that this life is so far out of my control. I have no control, and I'm a control freak. I hate when I feel like I can't control a situation. So it really just made me realize that I just need to trust in Him. I need to rely on Him, because things like this are going to happen. That's life. Because there's sin in this world, there's gonna be hurt, and that's the way it is. But I knew that the Lord had a plan for me. I don't know what His plan was. Maybe His plan was simply to bring us Theo, who has been the biggest blessing, or if His plan was for me to be able to share my experience with other mothers. Maybe His whole purpose of the miscarriage was for me to film this video. I don't know, but I know that in all things the Lord is good, and the Lord has a plan, and His plan is better than my plan. Will you tell Eloise and Theo about the baby one day, and how do you think you'll address it? We'll definitely tell Eloise and Theo about it. I'm not sure how it would ever come up. I definitely won't shy away from telling them that they do have a brother or sister up in heaven, and that's probably how I'll tell them as well, that they have a little brother or sister up in heaven, and that God took them away before they could be born. Until they're older, they won't really understand, but telling them that they have a little brother or sister waiting for them up in heaven is kind of cool. Kids are screaming in the background of this video. I'm gonna go try and tell them to be quiet. Did you experience feelings of embarrassment, and if you did, how did you cope? This is the weird thing about miscarriage, and I think this is why it's not talked about enough. I did feel embarrassed when I had a miscarriage. Why? I don't know. I can't explain it, but I did. Totally. I felt embarrassed. I don't know if I felt embarrassed because that's kind of how the world has put it, that it's embarrassing to have a miscarriage, or it's not normal to have a miscarriage. I don't know if it's just the world's view on it, or if it's because it's something that's not talked about very much, or if it's just like a natural thing to feel embarrassed. I pushed past that feeling of embarrassment, and I did put myself out there, and I did talk about it. I made it public, and I actually found so much healing from sharing my story. How do you best encourage someone who has just had a miscarriage? That really depends on the person. I myself really just wanted space. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to see anybody. I just wanted to be at home with my husband, with my baby. I just needed that time and space. But some people really need comfort. They really need people there to just be there. I feel like it depends. If you're an introvert, you'll want to be alone. If you're an extrovert, you want to be surrounded by people. My advice would be just to know the person. If you know that they're a very outgoing person, maybe offer to come over, to talk about it. If they don't want to talk about it, just give them some space for a while. If they're more quiet, more introverted, maybe just give them space, send them a few sweet texts, but don't go show up on their doorstep. Don't go give them a call. Give them a little bit of space and time to heal. And then after a while, something I found to be really helpful was people offering to bring me a coffee or take me on a coffee date or go for a walk. Go somewhere and do something that distracts me. To do something fun with people I love that doesn't remind me of what just happened. How do you best encourage someone? It depends on the person. Kind texts are always nice. Phone call, a visit, depending on the person. Even just sitting in silence with the person. Send over a gift basket. If there's someone who doesn't like to be around people all that often, put together a gift basket of just stuff that you know they love, put it on their doorstep, and leave, and then just text them and tell them that it's there. That would touch me very deeply if someone did that for me. But again, it just really depends on the person. How'd you handle the fear of miscarrying? I'm 4 weeks. It's hard to embrace the joy fully due to fear. That is something I found to be really hard when I did get pregnant with Theo. There was so much fear involved, but overall I just did have a really good feeling of peace about the pregnancy. The Lord really blessed me with that peace. From a Christian standpoint, how I got over fear was just praying and reading the word and spending time with the Lord. There were moments when I was just like crippled with fear, and I would go and take like multiple pregnancy tests just to make sure that the line was continuing to get darker and darker and that it wasn't fading like it did last time. But overall, I found joy through the Lord and just praying and spending time with him. We now have a little guest joining us. Mr. Theodore woke up from his nap way too early. If you hear baby coos or anything in the background, it's just Mr. Theodore. Did you feel disconnected from Zach after your miscarriage? How did you deal, if so? I actually did feel a little bit disconnected from him, and I think it's just because he grieved in a very different way than I did. He really didn't show a lot of emotion. He was always there for me if I just needed a shoulder to cry on or someone to talk to, but he really didn't show a lot of emotion, and it almost made me angry. A miscarriage is going to affect the woman a lot more than it's going to affect the man in the relationship, because everything is literally happening to the woman, and the man doesn't really feel very or as connected to the child until the child is physically in their arms. And so a miscarriage probably won't affect a man as much as it will a woman. So because he really didn't show any emotion, he never really talked about it, it almost made me angry. We got past it once I started to heal, got through the grieving process. It's not that he was never there for me or wasn't supportive of me, it's just that he didn't grieve the same way that I did. What was the physical pain like? So for me, with a chemical pregnancy, it really was just like a period. Everything happened naturally. In fact, at that time I was having really painful periods, and the miscarriage, interestingly, was not as painful as the periods I had been having. So cramping, bleeding. When I get periods, ever since my first pregnancy, I get a lot of pain in the vagina area for the first couple of days, so there was a lot of pain there. It makes it really painful to walk, so I have to just like sit a lot in the first couple of days of my period. But the pain was really just like a period. I don't know what it would be like if it was a miscarriage further along. I imagine it would be more painful, but I can't tell you how that feels. Did it prevent you from getting too excited when you got pregnant after miscarriage? When I got pregnant, technically the third time, after the miscarriage, I was obviously happy because that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to get pregnant. I was so ready to have another kid. I was scared to be happy. I didn't even want to tell anybody, which was so different from the last experiences. Especially the first time, I couldn't wait to tell people. But this time I was like, I don't even want to go to the doctor. I don't want to tell people. I don't even want to tell my mom. Like, I don't want to tell anybody, not even my closest friends. So yeah, it definitely prevented me from getting too excited because there was just so much fear in the back of my mind. As the weeks went on, things continued to go well. We went to the doctor, got it all confirmed. Slowly things got better and I got more excited, but it was really hard in the beginning to be excited and to not just be consumed with fear. How do you deal with telling your family and friends you got pregnant but are no longer? So because it happened really fast, nobody actually knew yet that we were pregnant. We were planning on telling them the following week. So at this point, we had gotten pregnant and lost the baby, and nobody knew. We decided the day that we found out to just text everybody that we knew. It's kind of a dumb way to tell people, is through text, like such a big serious thing to just tell them through text, but I couldn't bear to look someone in the eye and tell them, whew, got a little emotional. I couldn't bear to look someone in the eye and tell them that I had lost a baby, because the pain was so heavy and so real. The only thing we could do was just text people, because we didn't want people to just, you know, obviously no one knew, so we didn't want anybody to just say something that might trigger tears or pain, and we wanted people to know, because that's something we didn't feel should be kept secret from anybody, especially our family and friends. Texting was the best choice for us in that circumstance. And then in the following days, once it was a little bit less heavy and less real and raw, then we started to see people, then we started to tell people in person. How did you feel that something was off? I actually didn't. A lot of people have this sense that something is wrong. I had no idea. And I think a big reason was because I was just so completely clueless to miscarriage and what miscarriage was like. And I think that's another reason why I want to share this story, to raise awareness of this topic, because I myself was just so completely clueless, and it was just the biggest shock in the world. I mean, the first major shock was finding out we were pregnant in the first place because we weren't trying, and then all of a sudden a few days later that baby's gone. It's gone, and I had no idea. I didn't know it could happen that quickly. I was so clueless. I didn't even know that the line would fade if I was having a miscarriage. So I took a bunch of pregnancy tests, and then I didn't take any more because I was like, what's the point? It's just going to keep getting darker, right? Not necessarily. So I had zero clue, no idea that something was off. What did you find hurtful and helpful? Thankfully, I have the most amazing people in my life. Nobody in my life in person made me feel hurt or unhappy or made me feel belittled because of everything that happened. Everyone was really helpful, really sweet, offered lots of encouragement and help and just distractions and kindness, and it was very nice. I found it really helpful when people would take me out on a date or go on a date with me and Eloise. One of the first things we did was we went to an amusement park in the evening with the family and just had fun, just distracted ourselves from everything, and it was really, really nice to just get out. Hey! If the sound changes, it's because Theo played with the mic. I also found it really helpful when people would come over and bring me coffee, just a little treat to help me get through my day. Some people would offer gifts, some people would offer just to come over and to help out. A couple people cooked us meals, people were really, really sweet, and I found that to be very helpful because in that moment it was hard to do anything because I was just in grieving. So when people offered to cook us a meal or take Eloise for a little while so I could just have some time alone, that I found to be very helpful. What I found very hurtful were all the trolls in the comments saying that my feelings weren't valid because it was an early miscarriage and that a fetus isn't a person, and that is so far from the truth. People were belittling me in the comment section, and that's just given. That's just gonna happen. Unfortunately, that's the way the world is. There are people who want to hurt hurting people, which is so sad. But I found that to be very hurtful. A lot of people were like, there's no second line on that pregnancy test. You're making this all up. When people wouldn't listen, misinterpreted, misunderstood, or just flat out didn't believe me, that was hurtful. How has the healing process been for you, mentally, emotionally, and physically? Physically, it was fine. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of healing that needed to happen because it did happen so quickly. Emotionally, it took me a good while. For the first month or so, I was just in such a sad place. I was grieving so much in that first month, and that's good. It's good to have that time to grieve and to feel the pain of the loss. Where are you going? You want to go down? I actually wrote a blog post about moving on after miscarriage. I will link it down below. It's a good post to read if you've recently gone through a loss, even if you haven't, but someone you know has gone through a loss. I talked about just the grieving process and how to move on after that, how to heal. So emotionally, I feel like I handled the emotional part fairly well. I was a mess for a while. as is expected, but I moved on and I feel like I healed well. Why am I not allowed to grieve my baby that I lost a week and a half after finding out? I am so sorry that you feel this way and that people in your life are telling you that you shouldn't be feeling this way. Like I have said a few times in this video, a person is a person the second they are conceived. That is my belief. I believe that to the full extent. I will never go back on that belief. To tell a grieving mother who lost her child that their feelings aren't valid and that they should just stop and move on because they're being ridiculous? How can you do that? How can you do that? It honestly, it hurts me and makes me so mad when people say that. How can you say that? I feel like a lot of the world is going to tell you this, that your feelings aren't valid because that was just a tiny little fetus that never even had a heartbeat. And while that is true, that was still a person. And had something not gone wrong, that fetus would have had a heartbeat within days. I think the way that the world looks at early miscarriage especially is not how it should be because of the whole pro-choice movement. I'm a firm believer in pro-life. I know that's going to make a lot of people angry, but like I said, a fetus is a person. They're a person. Honestly, I don't know how anyone can't believe that, and it makes me so sad that because the world is so pro-choice that grieving mothers feel invalid. They feel stupid for having their emotions, the emotions that they should be feeling. If you have suffered a miscarriage, no matter how far along you are, your feelings, like I've said before, your feelings are so valid. Take the time to grieve. Sit in those feelings because they are real. You need to take that time to grieve in order to heal. I think that kind of covers most of the questions that I got asked. Again, I could only talk about this topic from my own experience. I know a lot of women have had a much more traumatic experiences, especially, I can't imagine, like the farther along you get, the harder it must be. If you have had a miscarriage, I'm praying for you. I'm so sorry for your loss. Know that healing is possible. You can move on from this, and I pray that the Lord blesses you with a rainbow baby when the time is right. Did you know that you're my rainbow baby? If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope this touched you in a special way. I hope this helped you find healing and worth. I hope this encouraged you to talk about it. If you haven't seen the other video in this girl series yet, I did film a video talking all about pregnancy and my experience with pregnancies. So if you want to watch that video, I will leave that linked below as well as right here. I will be filming more videos in this series. I want to talk about birth, after birth, postpartum, all the nitty-gritty details. I want to dive deep into these topics because all of these topics are just not talked about in detail enough. If you want to see those videos in the near future, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit that bell button so that you're notified as soon as my videos go live. And if you have hit that subscribe button in the past and aren't being notified of my uploads, take a moment, scroll down, unsubscribe, and then resubscribe again, and then hopefully that fixes the issue. There have been some people who haven't been getting my notifications, so hopefully that helps. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I will leave my handle down below. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Say bye. Say bye. I love you so much. Say mama. 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 No, mama. Hey, say mama. I know you can. Say mama.